Story 1. The Warehouse Order. It was Friday night, the beginning of a long holiday weekend, when Lucas decided to stretch his DoorDash shift a little longer. He had started around 8 o'clock in the evening, and now it was well past 2 in the morning. His phone kept buzzing with new orders, and after each delivery, he told himself the same thing, just one more. The extra cash made the exhaustion worth it, and the rush of a busy night kept him going. When the dashboard clock hit exactly 2 a.m., another order popped up. A McDonald's run, decent payout, reasonable distance. Lucas figured it would be his last delivery before heading home. He accepted without hesitation, but soon noticed something odd. The delivery address wasn't a house, an apartment, or even a hotel. It was an industrial warehouse located on the outskirts of town. The customer's instructions were brief and cold. Enter through the side door. Leave the food at the front desk. Strange, but not impossible, Lucas thought. Maybe he was a night shift worker or a security guard. He rationalized it the way he always did. After all, it was just food. The farther he drove, the emptier the streets became. Streetlights were scattered far apart, casting faint yellow circles onto the asphalt. Between each post, the darkness seemed to swallow his car whole. The GPS guided him closer, and when he finally spotted the warehouse, a tight knot formed in his stomach. The building was massive, gray, made of concrete and corrugated metal, standing isolated in the middle of a wide lot. The parking area was almost deserted, save for 2 trucks parked near the back. No windows lit, no sound of machinery. Everything was silent, lifeless. Lucas pulled into the lot and stopped near the side entrance. When he turned off the engine, the silence grew even heavier. The cold wind brushed against the car, rattling the paper bag of food on the passenger seat. He grabbed the order, stepped out, and immediately felt a chill that had little to do with the temperature. The metal doors were wide and heavy, rusted in spots. He pushed one open, the loud creak echoing into the hollow space inside. What he saw was nothing like a reception area. Instead, a long, pitch-black corridor stretched out before him. The only light came from a failing red emergency bulb that flickered irregularly, casting distorted shadows against the walls. The air smelled of dust and rust. The silence was suffocating, so deep that the sound of his own breathing seemed too loud. He stepped forward cautiously, scanning his surroundings, but there was no sign of a front desk, no sign of life. The place felt abandoned. Uneasy, Lucas pulled out his phone and dialed the customer's number. It rang once, twice, 3 times, and then, from deep inside the corridor, came a muffled sound. The ringtone of a phone. Lucas froze. The sound wasn't coming from outside, it was coming from inside, distant but unmistakable. "Hello," he called, his voice uncertain, echoing faintly down the corridor. The ringing stopped abruptly. Silence again, heavy, absolute. And then movement. From the far end of the corridor, a shadow emerged. A tall figure, walking quickly in his direction. What unsettled Lucas most wasn't the speed, but the complete lack of sound. No footsteps, no echo on the concrete. Just silent motion advancing steadily toward him. Lucas's instinct screamed. He began to back away, heart pounding, each step driven by sheer survival. The air seemed to grow heavier, the corridor narrower, as the figure drew closer without a word, without a sound. Reaching the exit, Lucas shoved the heavy door open and slipped out. But before it closed completely, he glanced back one last time. Through the small rectangular window in the metal door, he caught sight of movement. Someone or something was watching him from the other side. He didn't wait to confirm. Sprinting to his car, he tossed the bag onto the seat, turned the ignition with trembling hands, and the roar of the engine shattered the suffocating silence. He sped away without looking back. For days afterward, Lucas tried to brush it off. Just another strange delivery, nothing more. But the memory lingered. The silent figure in the darkness, the oppressive corridor, those unseen eyes through the glass. And then came a phone call. A detective from the local police department asked him to come in. They wanted to confirm his presence at that warehouse on Friday night around 2 in the morning. Lucas admitted he had been there. At the station, the detective explained that security cameras had caught his car pulling into the lot. "That warehouse has been shut down for months," the detective said. "No one's supposed to be in there." Further investigation revealed the order had been placed with a fake account linked to a stolen credit card. No one ever claimed the food. Nothing was stolen, which meant the order itself hadn't been the goal. Whatever, or whoever, was inside the warehouse had been waiting for something else. Lucas left the station shaken, his thoughts spinning. What was the real purpose of that order? And more importantly, who was the figure that had walked silently out of the darkness? Nights later, lying awake in bed, he still heard it, the faint ringtone echoing through the empty corridor. And he couldn't shake the memory of that dark silhouette, watching from behind the glass. To this day, he wonders, what would have happened if he had taken just a few more steps inside? Some questions are better left unanswered. Story 2. The Abandoned House. It was a little after 10 o'clock at night when Jason Miller finished his shift at a small family-owned restaurant in upstate New York. He often helped out with deliveries when business picked up, and the extra money was always welcome. That night, the staff was already closing down when the manager appeared with one last paper bag. "Jason, can you take this one more delivery?" the man asked, holding out the order. Jason checked the address and hesitated. It was nearly 40 minutes away, out in a rural area. Still, he agreed. He grabbed the bag, gave a quick smile, and told himself this would definitely be the last stop of the night. The drive felt endless. Street lights disappeared, and the houses grew farther apart. Many were old, with peeling paint, broken fences, and yards overrun with weeds. Some looked completely abandoned. The only sound was the hum of the tires against the asphalt and the occasional rustle of wind through the trees. At last, the GPS announced he had arrived. Jason slowed the car and pulled up in front of a large, two-story wooden house with faded siding. The porch sagged under its own weight, and every window was dark. The place looked lifeless, forgotten. He shut off the engine, grabbed the bag, and climbed the creaking porch steps. He knocked on the door. Nothing. He called out, but no answer came. Pulling out his phone, he dialed the customer's number. It rang and rang until it went to voicemail. Jason glanced around. The street was deserted, lined with tall trees swaying in the wind. No neighbors in sight. He decided to wait in his car. 10 minutes crawled by. Then he noticed it, a faint light flickering inside the house. Someone had turned on a flashlight. The beam moved from one room to another until it finally reached the entryway. The front door creaked open. A young man stepped out, holding a flashlight in one hand and a plastic bag in the other. His face was partially obscured by the glare of the light. "Go ahead and set the food on the kitchen table. My hands are full," he said casually, as if nothing were unusual. Jason froze for a second. The situation didn't feel right. Still, he stepped out of the car again and climbed the porch. The young man shifted aside and pointed the flashlight toward the interior. The smell hit him immediately, musty, damp, like a house sealed off for years. Dust coated the wooden floor. Furniture sat under old sheets. The flashlight beam revealed cobwebs in the corners, cracked walls, and broken window panes. It didn't look like anyone lived there. Jason held the bag tightly. Each step into the house felt heavier than the last. He stopped halfway into the living room and said firmly that he needed the payment before dropping the order. The young man didn't respond at first. He just stood there, the flashlight trembling slightly in his hand. Then, without a word, he dropped the plastic bag onto the floor and took a step forward. Jason's chest tightened. The young man's expression had changed. His eyes were cold, his stance more aggressive. He took another step, closing the distance. The silence pressed in, broken only by the whistling of wind through cracks in the old house. Jason's instinct screamed. He turned abruptly and hurried to the door. Behind him, he could hear the creak of the floorboards as the man moved faster. Jason bolted down the porch steps, nearly tripping, and threw himself into the driver's seat. His hand shook as he jammed the key into the ignition. For a split second, the engine stalled, and then it roared to life. As he sped away, he caught a glimpse in the rearview mirror. the front door slowly closing, the beam of the flashlight fading back into the darkness. No pursuit, no shouts, just silence, as if nothing had happened at all. The drive back felt endless. Questions raced in his mind. Who was that man? Why order food to a house that looked abandoned? What was in that plastic bag he was carrying? And what would have happened if Jason had actually walked all the way to the kitchen and set the food down like he asked? Back at the restaurant, he simply told the manager it had been a difficult delivery and asked to end his shift. He never shared the details. But from that night on, every time he drove through empty back roads or passed by old, isolated houses, Jason felt the same chill crawl up his spine. The musty smell, the dust on the floor, the calm voice asking him to step inside. They stayed with him like a warning. And to this day, when he remembers that night, one thought always haunts him. Running was the best decision he ever made, because deep down, he knows there was nothing normal about that house. Story 3: The Delivery Trap. Back when he worked as a delivery driver for Domino's, David Carter thought he had seen just about everything. Rude customers, shady neighborhoods, creepy houses. But nothing compared to the night that would stick with him forever. The store had been busy all evening. Around 11 o'clock, a man walked into the Domino's, his face partially hidden under the hood of a sweatshirt. He stepped up to the counter and placed an order for a large pizza. But instead of waiting for it, he did something unusual. He paid in cash and handed over a slip of paper with an address. "You want it delivered?" the cashier asked, confused. "Yeah," the man replied flatly. "I can't wait here. Just drop it off." The cashier taped the note to the ticket and sent it back to the kitchen. David, already heading out on another run, was assigned to take the delivery once the pizza came out of the oven. When he picked up the hot box and walked out to his car, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Maybe it was the guy's rushed manner, maybe the strange request. Either way, the unease sat heavy in his chest as he pulled out onto the road. The address was about 10 minutes away on a narrow residential street lined with older homes. But the entire drive, David realized he wasn't alone. From a moment he left the parking lot, a dark sedan tailed him. At first he thought it was a coincidence, but the longer he drove, the clearer it became. The car hovered behind him, sometimes speeding up aggressively, other times slowing down. Its high beams flashed in his rearview mirror. It swerved between lanes like it was trying to rattle him. David's pulse spiked. He thought about pulling over, but fear told him not to stop. Finally, he reached the house on the slip of paper. Relieved, he parked at the curb, grabbed the pizza, and walked quickly to the porch. He knocked on the door, glancing back nervously at the street. The door opened, but the man standing there wasn't the same guy who had placed the order. This one wore a baseball cap, speaking fast, asking if that was his pizza. Before David could respond, he heard footsteps pounding behind him. He spun and saw another figure in a hoodie sprinting up the sidewalk toward him. Instinct took over. David stepped back, clutching the pizza box, but both men closed in. The one at the door lunged off the porch, while the hooded man shouted, closing the gap. "Stop right there," one of them barked. "Drop everything." David's heart hammered in his chest. He dropped the pizza, bolted for his car, and jumped inside. His hand shook so badly he almost missed the ignition. One of the men slammed a fist against his window. The other stepped into the street, trying to block him. David threw the car in reverse and floored it. The tires screeched, narrowly missing the man in the road. He jerked the wheel, spun into a tight three-point turn, and gunned it down the street. In the mirror, the two men were still shouting, chasing for a few steps before fading into the darkness. David didn't slow down until he reached a busy avenue, his chest heaving, adrenaline still burning through his body. Back at the store, he told his co-workers what had happened. The manager immediately called the police. Days later, David learned both men had been arrested. According to investigators, it had all been a setup. The in-store order was intentional, meant to look harmless, to keep suspicion away. The address was just bait to lure a delivery driver into a quiet street where they could ambush him. David sat in silence as the officers explained. He had been seconds away from being robbed, or worse. That night, When he finally lay in bed, the images replayed over and over. The fist pounding on the glass, the men shouting, the moment his car barely started in time. He couldn't stop asking himself what would have happened if the engine hadn't turned over, or if he'd hesitated for even a second longer. From then on, David swore he would never take another delivery in a dark, isolated neighborhood alone. What once seemed like a simple job now carried a shadow he could never shake. The line between an ordinary delivery and a deadly trap was thinner than he'd ever imagined. And those were 3 real stories of late-night deliveries that went horribly wrong. If there's one thing they make clear, it's that not every door is worth knocking on. Sometimes the order is just bait, and the delivery driver is the prey. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Here, you'll always find terrifying stories that, unfortunately, aren't fiction. Now tell me in the comments, which of these 3 made you the most nervous? Or better yet, would you ever take a delivery after midnight? I'll see you in the next video. And until then, think twice before stopping at the wrong door.